So what I want you to do is challenge yourself. If you're not a software guy or gal, I think if you want to run a successful building company, you kind of have to start leaning towards educating yourself and improving your skill set. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. Good to have you with us again today. Look, we want to bring value as always. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about job management systems. And so, look, we're going to sort of do a deep dive into the system that we use, that all of our franchise general contractors use. And so just before I get started, the usual, like and subscribe. If you know anyone who might benefit from the info, be sure to share it with those guys. Okay, so job management software or quoting and estimating software, let's say, there's several to choose from. We have made our choice specifically. We originally had proprietary software that we developed over time. But the maintenance on that and the progress that was being made in the technology world, we decided. And the other fact was that we were actually Smith & Sons focused mostly on remodels, and in some cases custom homes. So we sort of made the decision to go with a company called Buildxact, and that was prior to Smith & Sons entering the Canadian marketplace. And so we sort of, as we moved to Canada, we brought Buildxact with us, and now, of course, they're all over North America. So really it comes down to really figuring out what suits your business, what suits your learning style, what suits your mental organization process, what suits your estimating process. So what we want to do is just make sure that you use the appropriate software. But today I'm going to quickly chat with you about, Buildxact. I think if you want to build you want to have a building company that's going to be efficient, you're going to have accurate estimates, and of course you want to be profitable, then having a specific estimating software in conjunction with an accounting software is a no-brainer, and it should be something that you use. If you're not going to use that and you're going to stick with Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, then you're going to have a hard time. I just don't entertain it. If guys don't want to embrace new technologies, then really I can't help them. And so we want to make sure that they're systemized as it relates to estimating and project management, things like that. So something I got told a long time ago is that profit is a natural byproduct of good estimating. So the better you can estimate, the more accurate you can estimate, the better that, or the higher profit will be, the more organized you will be in the delivery process. And so we want to make sure that, we are as efficient and as calculated as possible, and that our estimating is good. So you can find Buildxact, buildxact.ca. There's no E in exact. It's Buildxact. So Buildxact. I'm sure my team will include the link in the bio, and maybe there'll be something pop up on the screen so we can make sure we get that to you correctly. What I like about Buildxact too, just as a bit of an intro, is their Buildxact YouTube channel, which is basically full of tutorials. So if I want to know how do I generate a change order, or how do I generate a work order, or how do I do invoicing, or how do I sync my accounting software, all of that is in video format on YouTube. So a very good 24/7 support mechanism there. The other reason we're with Buildxact is because we have the requirement as a franchise organization, and Buildxact facilitates that for us as far as being able to pull data to our company portal from Buildxact. That's very helpful. Okay, so really top to toe, what's in Buildxact, and I'll just run through this list, and then we might just chat real quickly about different aspects of it. I might not talk about all of them. There's a leads tab that was introduced after we'd already started using it. I got to be honest with you, I've not dove deep into leads, the lead tab within Buildxact, but I do. We use the client tab all the time. It's where our admin will enter all of the client information that we gather from the website, and also from calls that come in. There's the ability to do estimates, and obviously we convert those estimates to quotes. There's a graphic takeoff tool, which is cool. I'll explain that in a minute. It has the ability to generate specifications whilst you build the estimate list. Obviously, there's a project management tool, a Gantt chart, essentially. You can also build the task list within or from the estimate, as you move through that, so that when you flick across to project scheduling, that's all of those tasks are already listed out there if you're happy to do it that way. We have a bit of a variation on our approach to how we do that. Obviously, quote proposal, so it generates pro forma quote letters. You can select within the quote proposal or the quote letter, which aspects do you want to show all the categories? Do you want to show all the items within the categories? Do you want to show the quantities, rates, costs, for the line items and the categories? Or do you just want to show specifications? You can, tick a box there to make sure that there's an initial place where you can get the clients to initial every page of the specification. So it's pretty cool. Obviously, once you convert that quote to a job, then there's obviously the typical invoicing systems within there that sync with your QuickBooks. Not sure of the other accounting softwares. I know it syncs with Xero. That's not very popular, not as popular in North America as what QuickBooks and Sage is. I don't think it syncs with Sage. It also has the ability to generate purchase orders, work orders, change orders, and probably most importantly, it has the ability for you to do cost comparisons, or what we look to talk about as far as work in progress reports that really come off the back of cost analysis between your estimated or your budgets versus your actual spend. So that really that probably I think. If we're talking about an estimating software, I think that the important parts are the estimation, your ability to organize your head, to be able to sort of build the categories within the estimate, and obviously make sure that all the line items are included to cover all products need to be supplied, delivered, and installed. You got to make sure you've got all of those components ticked off for every piece of material that goes into a build. And so it's, on some of the big projects, it can take a while. Smaller projects you can put through fairly quickly. Obviously, it has the ability for you to build templates. So let's say you've done a bathroom estimate and you really like that, you can actually convert that instantly to a template that you can use next time. We supply our general contractors with 3 templates. Basically, would be a major construction, a blank test template, and one for the quantity takeoff service, which I might have mentioned in the last episode. And so, from that is a great starting point. You can modify, and you can, really, it does have some flexibility built in around it, because we know builders have, come from all walks of life and backgrounds and skill sets and experiences and all sorts of things. So we want to make sure there is some flexibility, but we really want to give them an example on, what we do, and then they can sort of modify that to suit their own groove. So client information is good. Basically, once you enter a client into that job management software, they're there for life. You don't need to enter their details in again. Let's say, Barry homeowner rang you up and said, I want you to do a basement remodel on my house. And then maybe you get that job finished, and a year later he rings you back and says, now I've got an investment property that I want you to, do. You can actually go in there and just re-enter a new estimate, even if it is for a different site address. So basically, all of your history that you have that you're slowly building with Barry homeowner is all contained under that one client account as such. So like I just explained with estimates, probably within the estimate, a lot of small jobs like bathrooms and kitchens, you won't really use what they have available, which is the graphic takeoff tool. Now, I think there is, if you want to email me for a promo code, you can do that. And I don't know what that promo code is, but I have the ability, because of our history with Buildxact, that there will be some benefit if you come, via, myself and Smith & Sons, that we will refer you on to Buildxact, and you will get looked after. And I've had some text correspondence this morning with the business development manager at Buildxact in Vancouver, and he's more than happy to sort of extend a bit of a deal for all Smith & Sons referrals. So there'll be a Smith & Sons promo code for that. But the graphic takeoff tool you're going to use in some of the larger projects, it has the ability to do all kinds of wonderful things. And of course, if you jumped on Buildxact YouTube straight after this and just got onto their YouTube channel and dialed up graphic takeoff tool, you'll find the video there. But it'll do everything from calculating, obviously lineal feet on your walls. You can calculate square footage on areas, both for. What's interesting is it'll do normal 2D, floor plans, but it'll also do your roof, and it'll take into consideration whether it's a 4-in-12 or a 6-12 or whatever the case may be, and it will actually take into consideration the rake or the the degree of that roof to allow for the extra material. So that's pretty cool. You can in a side elevation, you can calculate how much siding needs to go on the building, and if you do a polygon, which means you just tap the corners of the building, and then what you can actually do is you can actually go in there and delete the square footage in the windows as well. So you get a super accurate net takeoff of hardies, and then you can add your your wastage percentages accordingly and things like that. So there's a fair degree of flexibility within that graphic takeoff tool, and that's really a separate tab by itself. So it's just going to come up with the numbers. There's several. You can use one number for several applications. You might use a square footage if you're building on a basement. You're doing upstairs and downstairs renovation. There's obviously square footage if it's a direct, on top of build. Then the floor area, you're going to be able to use that for your slab size. You're going to be able to use it for your plywood flooring. You're going to be able to use it for your drywall ceiling. So that number is not necessarily for drywall or plywood flooring or for a concrete area. It's just a floor area, and it's a very handy tool that you can use. That's hopefully a time-saving tool as well. Now, when we do get into the next tab is the estimating. It's essentially the costings. What I would do typically is what I want to do. Something I learned a long time ago from a guy. He's quoting a major job at that time, and this would be 20 years ago. And I asked the guy, I said, "How is it that you do a quote for that?" And he said, "All I do is I sit there and I build it in my head," which seems pretty obvious, and maybe most of you do that already. That was a bit of an epiphany for me at that time. But even today, the same approach is what that approach is what I use when I'm doing an estimate, whether it's for a small interior job or whether it's to do a full size even townhouse build like I've done. And so basically what we do is we want to think about it order. We want to build the categories within Buildxact. So we go through top to toe. Now, sometimes I'll forget maybe a tiler, so I've got to add that in at the bottom, but I can then just click and drag that back into the position that I want. So I build all the categories within that. And then what I then do is I dive deep into each of the categories and I introduce line items. Within those line items, there's always the first line is what I use it's got to be very client friendly. It's got to explain a little bit in brief about that category or that stage of the project so that they're able to understand that. And then below that, I add all of the labor, materials, and delivery for each of the components that actually build up that category. Now, to the right-hand side of that, and this is a bit of a deep dive, so you might have to go and look around. I'd actually urge you, just as a side note as well, that you can go and get a 14-day free trial period. So I'd encourage you to do that as well. And then, of course, if you decide to move ahead with it, then you'll want that promo code, the Smith & Sons promo code. So email me for that at max@businessforbuilders.ca, and I will get that back to you. And so on the right-hand side of each line item, you have the ability to click a specifications button, and what that does simultaneously, you have the ability to add line items into your specifications that you identify that you go, yeah, the client needs to know about this, and so you will explain it in layman's terms in that the client can understand, and you hit specifications, and that will add into your specifications document. So it's there's some leveraging capabilities. There's a couple of other things there which we'll get to in a second. But the specifications also, once you build the specifications, you back out of the estimate costings, you go across into the specifications, you click open the category maybe where you've just loaded up. Ensure that you've added dollar amounts, at least like a 1 cent or a $1 amount. If you're not set on if you've done a generic term in your estimate, let's say tap set for vanity in ensuite, but you don't know what style it is, you're going to have to put $1 amount so it does throw to the specifications. Then when you back out of estimate costings and you go into specifications, you open up the category, you click on that line item, you can actually see where you can actually add a picture of that item. And that's really helpful when you're building a specifications, because you can put as much detail as you like down there in the specifications about said tap set. But really what identifies with the clients is the picture of that final item. So at the end of every page on the specifications, and I mean, one of the big projects, and we're doing a reno, one of the bigger projects one of our guys is working on currently, the specification document is about 57 pages long. So there's a lot of detail that goes into a lot of this work, which when on the last episode I talked about the quantity takeoff service, I think the token amount for that to be able to oversee that aspect of service was upwards of $3,500. That was the starting point for that quantity takeoff. So I'm not sure what that's moved into, but a lot of the time it's 10 and 15 grand by the time it's all said and done. And so, those specifications can be a very powerful sales tool, because remember we go back in the sales episode, we talked about peace of mind, security, and satisfaction. When people know in advance what they're getting, nobody likes a blind side. And so these specifications, not only the line items, but also the pictures of said item. Now, we talked about the selection sheet. You're not actually going to be able to select the tap set until they come back to you with the selection sheet. We actually build the selection sheet from Buildxact or out of Buildxact. You have the ability to maybe put in there a generic term like tap set, and then you can hit a button that says allowances. Now, I talked about last time too, we don't do allowances, but I do tap that allowance button, and that is my red flag that item has not been specified. Now, what it does do is it does put it on an allowance document in Buildxact. I can edit that allowance document and make it look like a selection sheet. And that is the document we give to the clients for them to pick out backsplash tiles, countertop types, laminate color, tap sets, sink types, all that sort of stuff. They've literally, we're going to list it out for them because we're going to quickly build it in the estimate, and then we're going to ship that selection document off to them as a PDF that we've created within Buildxact. So, there's a lot of things that are happening, and of course, in between or beside the allowance and the specification button, there's also a task button, and that's the button you can hit. Normally, we use the task button to allocate labor. We don't do anything to do with materials. Even materials supplies is a bit dubious. We don't put that in our Gantt chart. It's more related to labor tasks. So you might, electrician to do the rough wire in that basement or in a kitchen, you might hit the task button. We don't normally do that because we find that we just like to be able to build the tasks separately in the Gantt chart. So we'll just open project scheduling and then start listing out those tasks. I don't think you can get access to that project scheduling until such time as you've converted it to a job. You won't have closed. You can convert it to a job without locking the estimate. So you do have some flexibility, but once you go to contract and you've got that signed agreement and you've got a down payment, you need to lock that estimate. So there's no mistakes or omissions or errors. You've just got to look at it for what it is going forward during the cost analysis process. That's the project management tool, which is what I've just chatted about. So that's really cool. So like I said, let's say we didn't include any tasks in the estimate. What we would then do is we would just build the tasks in order of construction. So we start for site prep. We go to, if we were talking a renovation, site prep. So we might have signage and things going in. We might want to look at where we're going to put our dumpster. We might want to look at where we're going to load or store materials. We might want to look at how we're going to track the materials into the home, how we're going to get the demolition debris out of the home. Those sorts of things is a site prep. Then we might go to demolition. Then we might go to framing. And so, we just got to look at all of those labor-heavy categories. And really if we've got a signed contract, even if we don't, we might make a projection for the client and say, look, if we started it, in a month's time, we would then be finished 3 months after that. So that starts to give them some framework as well. That's the really good thing. I mean, I've had guys that have joined Smith & Sons and they've said, well, how do you come up with the completion date? And A is I want to give the completion date because when I'm trying to sell peace of mind and security, the completion date is very much what helps us, along that with that initiative. But it certainly does add weight when it comes to when we're putting together the project. We do get an accurate understanding of where we're up to. So the project management tool, like I said, you can have list of tasks down the side. You select the date where that task is going to commence. You select the amount of days that task. So if it was a wiring rough-in, it might take 2 days or 3 days, whatever the case may be. At the same time, you might be game and you might get a plumber in there to do the hot and cold and the wastewater rough-in as well. And of course, they may be able to do that simultaneously. Now, the electrician might say, no, I don't want the plumber anywhere near it, or vice versa. The plumber might want full access to the site with no other trades. Then you can actually link the end of the plumbing to the beginning of the electrician. And of course, when you have a daisy chain that's built into this project management tool, this Gantt chart, if you had to move back the start date by a week, you would click and drag, and that essentially would shove all of that whole, as long as they're all daisy chained together, whether they're running in series or whether they're running in parallel, that whole thing gets pushed back. So you can actually essentially move, and you can pick any one of those tasks within that process, and you can actually push back the completion date, just so you can keep an eye on your completion date, because you don't want to give a completion date that's too tight. You want to be a little bit conservative on that. We've had all kinds of challenges here with supply chain issues, and I'm sure you have as well. And so it's important that you can really, whenever something happens on a job site, you want to see what the ramifications or the what the impact it has on your timeline is. You need to be able to know that at the drop of a hat. You need to be able to really sort of understand where and when things are going to be affected, because you might move something, then you might have to get on the phone and you might have to move a lot of trades. So it really is a really good tool. It's a fairly live situation, and it's going to require a lot of you be able to pivot and to adjust and to change on the fly. Just on that, I wouldn't advise. Buildxact don't have an app. That's probably one of the cons. They don't have an app. What I suggest to all my guys, when I'm in training, I show them the iPad Pro that I've got in the office here, and building, that gives us a decent sized laptop kind of screen. I'm sure on the smaller iPads it's probably okay as well. And of course that's got a data SIM card. And so that enables me to be out on site using Buildxact to make any notes or whatever I need to do. So that's a project management tool. Obviously, we talked about quote proposals, or we mentioned that. Essentially, what I can do is I can put together a cover letter. I can include all of the items and components or the categories in the items if I want to. I don't suggest that you do. For us doing fixed price, all of that is proprietary information within that build process of the quote. So we don't share any detail. We leave all of that. We put a lot of the micro detail into the specification. And so we really don't include the items and the categories within the quote for the clients. Now, in saying that, what I suggest that guys do is that we build a project file, and within that project file for a hard copy, let's say you've got a superintendent out on site, maybe that doesn't have access to Buildxact, or it's more convenient, he prefers a hard copy, then we put together a project file, and within that project file, we would actually print out the entire scope. So it would include categories, items, the units, the rates, the totals, the subtotals, the specifications, the whole 9 yards. So they've got a full purview of what went into that project. And so, but as far as the client's concerned, they'll get the cover letter, the specifications, and obviously the terms and conditions, and then the price. And that's really all we submit to the clients with our quote proposals. Now, there's all kinds of things. Terms and conditions you can modify. You can modify the quote letter. You can, and certainly you can tick boxes according to what you want the clients to see. It's always advisable when you produce that PDF that you peruse that to make sure that you're not providing the client with any sensitive information. And that's, once it's sent, it's sent. So always keep in mind that a good checklist at the back end of your quote proposal sheet before you go out and book the meeting for the proposal, that you've been fairly coherent and competent and efficient and organised. Then once the job is converted to a project within Buildxact, you have your standards. There's invoicing, purchase orders, work orders, change orders. What I suggest to the guys, once you've got a signature and you've got that initial down payment on the contract, what I do is I take that progress payment schedule that's in our contracts, and what we do is we develop the full list of invoices in a pending status that mirrors exactly what's going on in the contract. And what that means is they can go in and at any time at short notice mark those, create those as an invoice, mark them as invoiced, and save and send. So it's a fairly efficient process. Obviously, the other part of that is that we can, when we receive payment for said invoice, we have the ability to then apply payments against that invoice to ensure that our bookkeeping within Buildxact is up to date. And so that makes for very organised bookkeeping. Obviously, keep in mind all of that activity then syncs with your QuickBooks, so it keeps your bookkeeper happy. And so she basically gets a mirror image of what's happening in Buildxact in his or her QuickBooks. Side note, we provide the QuickBooks and even payrolls included in that QuickBooks subscription that Smith & Son supplies for our general contractors, our franchise general contractors, for the duration of the franchise agreement. The other thing there is Purchase orders. Now, this really, a lot of guys have a hard time with this, and it's really just because they're understaffed, because they don't have time. They're busy doing everything. And this is a bit of an arm wrestle. If you don't produce purchase orders within Buildxact, you're not going to be able to do any cost analysis. So it doesn't make any sense. You can do a lot of work in progress reports if you've got a bookkeeper that's got a head screwed on right. However, for the most part, that doesn't happen. They're ticking boxes, reconciling and things like that. So they're not really proactive as it relates to what I would call cost engineering and cost analysis. So there is the need for you to generate purchase orders. There's a few ways and means we try and create some efficiency to get it done, because a lot of the time with renos, I come from a new home background. I've worked for building companies that would build 1,000 homes a year, and you didn't get paid if you didn't have a purchase order. So I wouldn't move unless I got a purchase order. So I come from that background where I understand the power of a purchase order for the subcontractor, but also for the builder. And so, to get those purchase orders in the system on a reno, it's very hard to predict, because you don't, you're trying to manage the costs of things. And we know that. I think I talked about in one of my recent podcasts too, about how that you can actually add to your gross profit by efficient building practices and, minimizing your costs and maybe saving some money. So what we have a tendency to do is to retroactively or retrospectively generate purchase orders to enable us to do some of that work in progress reporting. And that is actually built in. There is a dashboard in there that, will show you your overages. It will look at, what your percentage of the claims is, what the percentage is on the variance, whether you're under budget or whether you're percentage over budget. So there's some good analysis tools built in there as well. Work orders, that's whereas if you're a renovation, builder, and you've got one or two guys working for you, you want to really add their labor cost, even though they are a cost of goods sold, they're still on your staff. You need to be able to input something into, you can't add them into the system as a subcontractor because they're on staff. The work orders is for your operational on-site guys and gals, that you can then use that work order against and apply that against a part of the budget within your estimate. That's what the work orders do. Obviously, change orders, they play a big role in my ability to keep myself organized, because true to form, you'll get into a renovation, you'll knock out a wall, and all of a sudden they're going to want, a window put in the external wall now that they can see right across the room. And so, the process for that is you go, okay, that's great. You want a change order. In our contracts, there's a fee for a change order, about $250. It's up to the builder whether they want to waive that. I would suggest that they waive that for the first 2 or 3 times, but after that, draw the line. You don't move unless you get there's a $250 fee for that change order. That's it. That's up to you to do. That's just what we do. You don't have to do that. And so what we do is we produce a change order, which is essentially a quote for said scope of works. It'll be submitted, and it'll either be accepted or rejected. If it is accepted, automatically you'll have the capability in your accounts to generate an invoice for that, and you can generate that immediately, or you can generate that at the next progress payment schedule claim. It's up to you. I would suggest that you promptly get on that. The minute you've got an acceptance in writing on the bottom of that change order, I would generate an invoice and submit that. A lot of the time, we've got to order materials in advance for those change orders, so it's not unlike any of our guys to actually request for full and final payment on that change order. So give that some consideration. And look, if it's not in writing, it's not in writing. On change orders, my rule is when I talk to the guys, the minute you deviate away from the specifications, which is why you've got to have a lot of micro detail built into the specifications, even if you're going to do something for free, what I urge my guys to do is to go in there. Now, when I said you waive the $250 fee, the way I want you to waive that fee, if I'm talking to one of my guys right now, is that you put the $250 fee in there and then you back that fee out. I want the clients to know that I've just done them a $250 favor. It's important that they value your time and that they don't take for granted your generosity, right? So then the other thing is, if you've done something for free, I want you to put the $250 in, I want you to back the $250 out, and I want you to explain what you've just done for free. Removed a couple of studs to create another doorway opening, or whatever the case might be that you were happy to be, generous and do for free. And I want you to put an amount there that's what it would have cost them for that scope of work. And then I want you to back out with a general contractor applied 100% discount, or however you want to word it. What I'm trying to say is that builders get frustrated by clients who forget about the things that they might have done nice. And unfortunately, the builders haven't got a leg to stand on because they've done it to themselves. This way, you can slide that across the counter at the next payment schedule and say, there's a change order there for that little thing that I did for you for free. I just wanted to let you know. I wanted to document that, and this is what it would have cost if we had done it. So I've done you a bit of a solid. Now, I don't need their approval to do that. I don't need their pat on the back. I just don't ever want to get to a situation where I get frustrated because they don't know what I've just done, right? You don't have to do that. That's just what I recommend that highly to my guys. So that's change orders. Obviously, cost comparisons and work in progress reports. We talked briefly about that. You want to be able to look. If good estimating, if profit is a natural byproduct of good estimating, how is it that you know that you're a good estimator? Well, I'll tell you how you figure out whether you got the chops as a good estimator is when you apply your expenses to your budget that you've built in your estimate, which is now locked because you're under construction, and then you can do an analysis on the fly and of course at the end of the project, and you can look at the areas where you had budgeted sufficiently, or where you'd made some oversight. Now, look, as a Smith & Sons operator myself back in the day, as a franchise general contractor, we did a $1.1 million project, and my estimator come to me 3 weeks into the project and said, look, I don't know how I've done it, but I've missed all the ceramic tiles. Now, we were using not Buildxact, but the proprietary software that we were using at the time. This is just over 10 years ago now. And at that point, we'd already recognized where the deficiency was. So I wouldn't call that cost analysis. I would say that's cock-up analysis. But at that point, we knew we had a fixed price, we had a set time period, but at least we knew in advance. And so as we did our cost analysis on a weekly basis and we looked at where we might have been saving, what we were trying to do was claw back that $8,500 loss. And so that's the other reason where when you've got the ability to do cost comparisons and cost analytics and things on the fly and working in progress reports, so long as you are being diligent and you're applying those expenses to the budget, you can quickly highlight where you're estimating well, where you're estimating not so well. And of course, if there's anything that's been missed, that does become a massive red flag, and you've got your work cut out to recover that loss. And just get back to zero. So just to wrap up, I hope that's helped. It's a bit of a deep dive. Just to wrap up, the conclusion would be a lot of guys that are just using Excel spreadsheets and cost and Word documents, and they're wondering why the business is not growing. This may not be the exact reason why, but I'm telling you it's going to contribute to the lack of momentum. Anything that creates friction in your business, anything that is bad. Because friction creates heat and drag. Both are really bad for business momentum. So you need to be careful that you're not creating any unwanted friction, heat or drag within your business, because I'm telling you, it's going to cost you money. So what I want you to do is challenge yourself. If you're not a software guy or gal, I think if you want to run a successful building company, you kind of have to start leaning towards educating yourself and improving your skill set. I have this saying, learn more, earn more. So today, your challenge might be like, right, no more Word doc, no more Excel spreadsheets. I'm going to teach myself to use a software, whether it's Buildxact or Buildertrend or Co-Construct or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to get better. And I'm telling you, if you do work hard on yourself and learn more, you'll actually find yourself with a high level of efficiency, and your productivity will go up. And of course, the more work you do, we'd like to think that you're going to make more profit. And you're going to estimate better. So, good estimating is going to produce more profit, which is great as well. Understand that systems give you leverage. So if you understand that, how to, now you fast forward 12, 18 months and all of a sudden you're a ninja estimator and you're great with software, maybe you can then start to consider bringing on a project consultant who's good at estimating and dealing with clients in the sales sector and can actually support you in your business development. I've said this before, businesses operate off the back of good systems, and systems are operated with really good human beings. You've got to have good systems and a good culture. That's what's going to help you drive a business forward, upwards and onwards. What you don't measure, you can't manage. So if you don't know how well you're estimating, how can you improve? If you don't know, your financial metrics from 1 month to the next, or 1 quarter to the next, or 1 year to the next, and you can't really identify why you're not performing, then you're never going to grow a business. You're going to go around the mountain. You're not going to get off the runway. You're not going to find altitude, and you're not going to be able to have a better lifestyle. So here at Smith & Sons, we tell our guys, We want to help them get more leads, show them how to make more profit, and build a better lifestyle. That's essentially what a business is supposed to deliver to our general contractors. So if you've loved what you heard, like and subscribe. Send me an email for that promo code for Buildxact, max@businessforbuilders.ca. And I really hope that this episode has added some value to you and your business. Go build a kick-ass business. I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.